All right, welcome back to AM Live. I have traced that quote to me statement, just forwarding it to my WhatsApp. Am I the only one who has a group, who created a group so that I can be forwarding myself such statements? I will pull it up. But also, we promised to look at the front page of the Healthy Nation, highlight this special report by Leon Lidigu. Small mistakes that are costing Kenyans an arm and a leg, quite literally. Overlooked injuries and unaddressed diseases are putting many at risk of losing toes, feet, and even entire limbs inside Kenya's amputation crisis. This is in the Healthy Nation pullout. You will find it within the Daily Nation, and he's even tweeted about it right under his pinned post about his award, his Ajaya Best Health Reporter Award. So you know whatever information is contained in this article is credible, and it is packaged, delivered in a way that you will be able to relate to it and learn something in the process. So that is the Healthy Nation. Switch cameras this way so I can pull up the statement from my WhatsApp. Thank you very much. Don't want anybody to see anything scandalous. If you could please, Mark Ndome, thank you. There we go. Let me pull up the statement. Here we have it. Okay, we are good. We are safe. You can come back. Civil society organizations media statement on the finance bill of 2023, and pockets are empty. Shield Wananchi from the high cost of living. Protect local businesses. And they've raised concern over the value-added tax proposed. A total of 11 amendments have been proposed. Out of these, the coalition endorses 3. Please see the policy brief shared with you for details. So they've talked about the increase of VAT rate on petroleum products from the current 8% to the proposed standard rate of 16%, which they say is opposed. They've opposed amendment of Section 33. We oppose this and ask Parliament reject this proposal with the justification that these industries employ young people and women. Lifting of VAT exemptions could increase the cost of businesses, which could cause layoffs. They say amendment of Section 33, Section 66 on the removal of VAT exemption on inputs of raw material locally purchased or imported by manufacturers of clean cook stoves. Members oppose this because removing VAT exemption on inputs or raw materials locally purchased or imported by manufacturers of clean cook stoves would increase the cost of producing climate-friendly stoves. The proposal to remove the VAT exemption on the supply of maize. This is the bit that you're explaining. The proposal to remove the VAT exemption on the supply of maize flour, cassava flour, wheat, or how do you pronounce this? Meslin? Huh? Okay.
I will defer to your diction.
I will Google. You know, sometimes even when I'm doing the news, I have to check the pronunciation of certain words. I will find that. Meslin flour, let's call it that for now. And maize flour containing cassava flour. This is opposed by the CSOs, as this will raise the cost of living for many Kenyans. Excise duty proposed amendments are addressed in the statement. Income tax proposed amendments, those opposed and recommended for rejection by the National Assembly are introduction of the 10% payee tax on the first 24,000 without relief, introduction of 35% payee for those earning a monthly income of 500,000 shillings and above per month. And you say this should apply to those earning more than $1 million per month. The amendment on the turnover tax threshold that was referenced by Rebecca to be revised so that 500,000 to, or the amendment on the turnover tax threshold proposed to be revised so that 500,000 to 15 million taxed at 3% is rejected. Members recommend that the status quo, that is turnover tax threshold from $1 million to 50 million, taxed at 1% being retained. Members note that increasing the turnover tax from 1% to 3% may discourage the informal sector from embracing the turnover tax, as the increase in rates may be viewed as punitive in a sector that is still new in the taxation net and a major contributor to the economy. Here I see As we shift the government focus from overtaxing citizens and businesses, we wish to propose the following as alternatives. So you proposed alternative measures that the government could use to meet its revenue collection taxes. First, reduce the wage bill. Second, reduce tax expenditures, which are taxes foregone to provide incentives to businesses. Let's see. Third, push for full devolution of functions from the national government to the county governments. I'm sure county governments will be thrilled to read this. Fourth measure is empower and then they should also provide services, right?
Yes.
Commensurate. The fourth measure is to empower and adequately finance institutions like the EACC and the judiciary to aid the fight against corruption, and we are getting into their proper comeback up. Fifth, empower the Office of the Public Debt Management by making it an independent office. Let me take a look at this one in more detail. Making the office independent would help in mitigating public debt conflicts. Would help it mitigate public debt conflicts and advise the government on the debt ceiling, increase debt without a return on service from the debt caused by corruption, and the executive's ability to manipulate the debt increment. An independent Office of Public Debt Management would be able to curb the harm caused by such corruption and manipulation. Sixth, increase Parliament's oversight of budget implementation to reduce wasteful expenditure. The role of overseeing the implementation of the national budget lies with the National Assembly. Pressure must be placed upon this body to take the implementation reports and recommendations from the Office of the Control of Budget and the audit reports from the Office of the Attorney General. This will aid in holding different MDAs to account for their spending. Because that's the thing. We hear a lot of things during these committee sittings, but then what do they translate to? What action do they translate to? Okay, so I see based on this awakening, Okwa Ochumi today announces the following actions. We will collate all memoranda submitted to Parliament by the people and disseminate widely the will of the people. Mobilize all Kenyans to inform their Member of Parliament on their stand on the Finance Bill 2023. Have a People Assembly of all 290 constituencies during the debate and voting on the Finance Bill, and prepare and publish how each MP voted. Hey, you're putting on the pressure. If the will of the people is subverted, we will commence the process of exercising our powers as the sovereign and commence public actions targeting the executive and Parliament across the entire country. And undersigned, we have how many of these? 23 civil society organizations that have appended their signatures. The Okwa Ochumi campaign is a civil society platform committed towards working with stakeholders to resolve Kenya's public debt crisis. So that is the statement. There we have it, and you have introduced the question of corruption even in this, but this is not the only statement you have released, like as I mentioned in the last few days. You also raised concerns on the nomination of Nuruddin Haji to be, quote, spy chief, Director General, National Intelligence Service. Why?
Oliver, and I think we've been in the public, this studio as well, because Nuruddin Haji, after the Kenya Kwanza administration was sworn in, he had a very lengthy interview where he publicly acknowledged that he took on some cases for prosecution due to some undue influence. Okay, he was under pressure, he caved, and he prosecuted a number of cases on that basis. During that prosecution, he was everywhere. Razzmatazz, cameras, here is what we are doing. We are saving this country. 3 billion in this case, 7 billion, 400 million Kenya shillings. Used his time as DPP, public resources, in prosecuting people that he later explained he was under undue influence. You've had us as Okwa Ochumi calling for an independent public debt management office. The Office of the Director of Public Prosecution is anchored in the Constitution. It has safeguards and it has ways to protect itself from interference. And the principles that are put out in, is it section 4, on the principles and values of that office, is that it must ensure that there is, they say, gender equity, it serves the natural cause of justice. It does not in any way allow unreasonable influence in that office. Yet, he publicly confessed publicly, without being prompted by anybody, told Kenyans, look, here I did not do the right thing. How he still holds that office, for me, is very, very shocking. And I know my fellow panelists will address the issue of integrity, but if you look at the specific wording of the Constitution around this, I
can pull that up. Which chapter are you on? Chapter 6?
Chapter 6, okay. Article 73 in particular.
Okay, go ahead, as I pull it up.
Okay. And you're supposed to be, one, accountable to the public for your decision and action.
Article?
Article 73 of the Constitution.
Okay.
Okay. Then you're also required to be objective and have impartiality in decision making. It must not, your decisions must not be influenced by nepotism, favoritism, or other improper motives or corrupt practices. But in his own admission in a public, in a media interview, he told us, I was under undue influence. The standards, the ethical leadership required in Chapter 6 is such that immediately he did that, he should have done the honorable thing and ensured that we do not question or reduce Kenyans' confidence in the office of the Director of Public Prosecution. But he continued and remained in office. So as the National Integrity Alliance, we wrote together with other civil society seeking access to information. What are these cases you have withdrawn? What are the reasons? What is this undue influence? We've not gotten that particular information, and that was what was holding us back. The minute we did not get that, or the proper collation from the office of the DPP, we have been drafting a petition since he made those particular requirements, but we had given the office the benefit of the doubt. And now, based on the continued action and what we saw even recently during the Azimio-led protest, surely his leadership does not provide the needed confidence to the office of the Director of Public Prosecution. And if you recall where we were in 2010-2009, when these important oversight and justice institutions, Kenyans lose their confidence, we risk going into anarchy. So based on that, we would like the Public Service Commission to consider the petition that we have availed, and there are other petitions that have been filed before the Public Service Commission. Some have been heard, some are yet to be heard. So we are not the only ones who filed this type of petition. Now, based on that particular record, we are also questioning the president. The last week he did some actions that I would say are very good for a leader to clearly show what he wants around the ministry, when there was a purge of people who were suspected of corruption. Okay, so those are not going to serve anymore. But why are you appointing somebody with questionable character? Remember, the people who are fired have not been charged in a court of law, but because of our integrity standards, they have to be sacked and no longer serve in office. Why would you appoint such people through and through? Look at the central bank. Look at, was it the water board? Now to the chief spy. Okay, this is a very important office that shapes our national security. In their advice, they shape our justice system. If you look at the access to information, exemptions for what government cannot provide is the economy and the link to security. So our economy is linked to the security of this country. What are we saying? Are we going to receive biased national intelligence report because of somebody who has caved before to pressure? There are very many people. I have no names, but we need somebody who, oh, that's my NIS chief spy. Wow, that institution is in the right hands. we need that feeling as Kenyans.
All right.
And I don't think it's a very difficult ask. That is why we served our petition yesterday, and we are waiting to hear from the Public Service Commission. And after all, he's still the DPP, so he is rightly under the Public Service Commission.
All right. You made reference to Echesa Kamau Thuge inference, not mention inference. But there are those who will argue, have they been convicted? And I remember, you know, there's this whole debate of somebody has to be tried, convicted, and have exhausted all appeal mechanism. And there, apondo nini yangu mesha. My legal training. But you know, Kenyans, we always fancy ourselves legal experts. But we have an actual mtu mwenye amesomea hii mambo. But Rebecca, is that because we make a lot of reference to chapter 6 of the Constitution, but I remember going back to former President Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto being cleared to contest the presidency back in 2013. The case that was made is that you have to be tried, convicted, and have exhausted all appeal mechanism. Is that where we lost it, in your view, with chapter 6 of the Constitution?
Olive, I think we lost it. I think we lost it. Sorry. Looking at chapter 6 of the Constitution on leadership and integrity, we have qualifications before you get to hold these state offices and as a public officer. There are those qualifications. Part of the requirement is that you must be a person of integrity. I mean, what is the dictionary definition of integrity? Let me ask you, Olive. Are we saying that everyone, each of us who has never been charged before a criminal court and convicted, we are persons of integrity? I don't think so. Because integrity goes into our moral probity. Sorry. I mean, as the society, do you instill confidence in the citizenry? Do we believe in you as our leader? So that over and above criminal prosecution, because these are qualities to be considered way before you get into the office. Of course, once you get into the office, and as Diana, the petition by Diana's society to the Public Service Commission, of course, that is the procedure of removing the DPP from office. You have to present that petition to the Public Service Commission. The Public Service Commission will consider that. I mean, that is the fair, part of the fair administrative process. I mean, what are the complaints that are being raised by the society and all these people? The Public Service Commission will look into this. Once they are satisfied that, you know, there are serious issues being raised against the DPP, they will submit their recommendations to the president. What is the president supposed to do? Appoint a tribunal. You see, these are constitutional offices, like the office of the DPP.
Yes.
It is an office that is protected so that by the time you are removed, there is a process, and that is the process they are trying to understand. Once the tribunal is appointed, they will give their recommendation, or, I mean, their petition doesn't make much sense, or if it makes much sense, then let's get the DPP out of office, and that is the process they have adopted. But way before you got this person to the office, what were the considerations? I'm reminded of the position of leaders in the UK, for instance. Look at Liz Truss. I mean, why did she resign from office? Was she convicted before a criminal court?
Maybe alishindwa na kazi.
Alishtuliwa. It was, you know, issues. The moment the public has no confidence in your leadership, I mean, the onerous thing, if you ask me, is to resign. But as a country, as the African society, have we gotten into that? Of course, South Africa, we saw Jacob Zuma resign from office, but that was after serious pressure, and he was basically hounded out of office. Here in Kenya, we've not gotten to that level. We are at this level where I mean, Kenyans, every other time we say any publicity is good publicity. It's just about being popular. Once you are popular, you can get votes. Because even as voters, I mean, what do we consider before we pick these leaders? Because the process of election and selection of leaders has to meet the integrity test. I don't think integrity equals lack of criminal conviction. For instance, there's this form that is usually returned by any person seeking public office, whether elected office or whatever, that fall under the Leadership and Integrity Act. Do you know, once you fill in, because as advocates, you're always commissioning these forms for these people, apart from your personal details, your family and all this, there's that particular, actually the question number one is whether you're supposed, you yourself, I mean, assess yourself and tell the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission whether you have been dishonest in your dealings. You see, it's about your moral probity. It's about you as a person. Boris Johnson resigned from office. I mean, have we gotten to that time where, as an African society, we can say, no, I don't instill public confidence, I should get out of this office? So for me, Chapter 6 really, and there's a plethora of legal statutes talking about the issue of integrity in leaders. It's not only the Chapter 6, we have that Leadership and Integrity Act, which was enacted pursuant to that Chapter 6. We have the Public Officers Act, we have several bodies and authorities, we have the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, we have the ASECA, or the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, which sets out all these offenses. There's issues of abuse of office. I mean, we are using a lot of taxpayers' money to fund offices and authorities and persons who their role is actually Chapter 6. But at the end of the day, do we even need these officers at the end of the day? If you ask me, maybe government should just do away with all those officers. We have whoever, so that then instead of taxing people, they save money and run the economy. Because at the end of the day, these bodies, are they helping us much? We have all these commissions, I mean, under the Public Officers Ethics Act, we have the JSC, I mean, to take care of judges. We have the Public Service Commission, we have the Parliamentary, we have the Teacher Service Commission. All these commissions is actually to discipline errant members. People are subject to those bodies. But is this being done? As a society, we celebrate popular people regardless of what they have done. Maybe it is a question we need to think about. And even our leadership, like our president, when he picks leaders, cabinet secretaries, and whatever position they hold, are they people that instill confidence in us? Am I confident as Becky? Can I proudly say, oh, this is my CS for this particular ministry? Am I proud, or I'm like, oh God, what did you do last year? So let's take the issues of integrity more seriously as a country. And in my view, it is not limited to criminal convictions.
All right. And can I say something on a light note? But there's a fly that's buzzing around here that's really has it in for me. You know, when you talked about the Leadership and Integrity Act, so I Googled because I was trying to pull it up to get that form you're making reference to. So I saw that there's a PDF under the Ministry of Health website. And then when I hit the link, it tells me the requested page could not be found.
You see?
On a light note, on a light note. All right. But I can confirm that what Diana was reading for us on Chapter 6 of the Constitution, Article 73, where she spoke about objectivity and impartiality in decision-making and in ensuring that decisions are not influenced by nepotism, favoritism, right, or other improper motives or corrupt practices, is indeed accurate. In fact, it continues to say that accountability to the public for decisions and actions. Speaking
to the public.
To the if I could, I would underline to the public. So the president was taken to task, Wilkester, on this question of the DPP Nuruddin Haji during the sit-down interview he did with the media. And he was asked, this is somebody who, as Diana said, publicly admitted that there was undue pressure coming from on high. And it could have, or did influence, because they withdrew cases, did influence the prosecution of certain individuals. And the president was asked, so why is this person still in office? The same was asked on the control of budget following the Telkom saga. And the president said, it's a good question when asked the DPP. He then, days later, appointed and nominated the same person for the National Intelligence Service. Mixed messages?
Yeah, I read a lot of mixed messages as well, because the DPP is on record saying that he's not acted out of out of any pressure or undue pressure from any sides. And just to also, chime in terms of public trust in institutions and public offices, because, when you look at Nurdin and some of the questionable cases that looked like they have slipped through his fingers and have been dropped, for young people, that raises a lot of questions. And perhaps we don't see the ripple effect of acts like this, the appointment of, the Nurdin, Haji, Echesa and whatnot, because someone like Echesa came in as one of the people who are celebrating as young leaders in the country. But again, when you look at what his track record has been like, he's very questionable in terms of his own integrity and character. And this boils down to how young people participate within political, social, and economic processes in the country. Because speaking as of last year, the targeted number of new registered voters, IBC was not able to reach that mark. And most of these targeted new voters to be registered were young people, who some have not even picked up their ID cards and did not see the need to register as voters. Looking at the young people even turned up to vote on the ballot, you see a drop in that. So what that communicates to us as young people is that, it doesn't matter at the end of the day whether you're holding up, integrity and morals in terms of how you conduct yourself publicly as a leader. It communicates to, it's almost as if the more corrupt you are, the better fit you are for a public office. And that's a really wrong messaging to be passing down to a generation. And remember, the corrupt leaders in office are not just stealing the coffers within this particular period. They're actually taking away the future of the young people. In other continents, we are looking at young people becoming, they're the ones who are taking up a lot of mortgages and home ownership. In Africa, with the youth bulge, you're not even seeing, young people being able to even dream of owning a home at this point in time. So such moves have a ripple effect in terms of how young people participate. Even looking at just young women participating in democratic processes last year, we only had, I don't know, a little over maybe 20 young women who are elected into public offices. And for us, this is a problem, because the more we do not see ourselves as young people represented in these processes, the more it becomes a problem for us to want to participate in these processes. So that negates us even socially and economically. Economically now, it's almost as if we don't even have a voice anymore, because the millions that are being stolen, if you do a breakdown of these millions, in fact, the stories are passing, they look like, you're like awake but you're dreaming, because 560 something million per young person. Yes. I mean, it's no small money. In fact, you're telling someone who cannot even picture what 2 million bob looks like. And these are the same young people that we want to call hustlers and have them in different spaces. Again, the problem for me with political spaces, politics does not reward merit. Politics rewards loyalty. And that's a problem, because even Chapter 6 is based on the tenets of democracy. And if meritocracy is not one, of the things that we are putting forward in terms of the people we have in public office, then it continuously becomes a problem in a nation where already we are grappling with a lot of issues in terms of, our social and economic status.
All right. I came across this on WhatsApp. It was shared by one archer, Mishale, and it says on, those forwards you come across on WhatsApp. It says it's corruption until it benefits you, then it's connection. Even Christians call it grace.
And so we can say corruption has been sufficient to certain people.
Ni God maze.
Ni God.
Yeah. Ni God.
But let's take a look at that statement that was released by the, remind me, NIA, National Integrity Alliance. Yes. And I've pulled up some of it on Twitter. And it states that in the past 8 months, Kenyans have been astonished by a pattern of the withdrawal of corruption cases involving certain politically connected, we're talking about connected individuals, a number of whom have been appointed to executive positions, which raises doubt about the DPP's impartiality and his commitment to fighting corruption, a pervasive problem that continues to hinder Kenya's progress. About 8 graft-related cases And you list them here: Geoffrey Mwangi, former CEO, NHIF, and 17 others, 1.1 billion shillings. Rigathi Gachagua, so it was a case involving this amount, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Rigathi Gachagua, Deputy President, and 9 others, 7.3 billion Kenya shillings. Wambui Mary, I saw there's a daily that called her Wambui Waruto or something like that. Mary, I can't remember, something similar to that. Communications of Authority of Kenya chairperson tax evasion case, 2.2 billion shillings. Aisha Juma, CS Ministry of Public Service Gender and Affirmative Action, graft case, 19 million shillings. Ben Chumo and others, 400 million shillings. Kenta Roos and 8 others, 159 million shillings. Cases involving these amounts have so far been withdrawn. So I'm just flipping over to the next page here by the ODPP and Mr. Haji's watch, a clear indication that he failed to exercise authority in a manner that promotes public confidence in the integrity of his office, contrary to Article 73 of the Constitution, which we, Diana, read out to us, and I did as well. If the 8 cases listed above had been adjudicated to a conclusion and successfully, Kenyans would have recovered about 11.3 billion shillings, let alone the time and resources spent in the adjudication process, which could have aided in dispensing other cases the judiciary. So, Diana, my question to you is this. If we are to believe, as we have been told, that some of these cases were politically motivated, do 2 wrongs make a right? Is Nuruddin Haji then wrong in seeking to remedy an injustice?
2 wrongs would never make a right, okay? But if I make the wrong and I correct it, I am the one who, I am holding a public office where I was appointed on the basis of my personal integrity, okay? It starts with personal integrity. In the course of execution of my duties, I no longer have personal integrity, okay? I soul search and realize, mess, okay? I have already messed with the personal integrity and confidence of that office. That acknowledgement, I should allow somebody else to lead the process of correcting that particular wrong by doing the honorable thing. So if it is true and correct that these cases were instituted because of undue influence, there was prejudice, there was other motivation, then it is very right for them to be withdrawn. But most importantly, that must be accompanied by accountability. For the people, we need to know who was this who had undue influence. Okay? They need to be charged. They need to be properly charged for their undue influence in wasting Kenyans' time and resources, even our emotions, even our emotion, Olive. There are times you are like, wow, we have made progress. We are about to recover 8 billion. Oh my God. And you know, this math I never understand. And I love one of our members of the Okoa Uchumi Coalition who understands people like us who do not have big money. And like the trillion budget, he turns it to 360 shillings. You know, something you can grasp and do your maths in the market. Okay? So when you hear 8.3 billion, you're like, wow. Schools in 30 counties will have their capitation or something like that. That is how, that's the what is this called? It is the magnitude of what is at hand. So we have not seen accompanying accountability. Part of it, we are told it could be the former DCI head, okay? But all that happened was he was fired, okay? He was fired and asked to step aside. There was no accountability. And as we move into the next phase, my learned senior will tell us, are there such offenses, okay, for obstructing the cause of justice, misleading, there are offenses around that. But ultimately, let's even move away from criminal law and criminality. Ethical leadership, dignity and confidence of the office surely, some of us have made mistakes. I am nothing close to perfect. I have made apologies, but it is for processes that I don't lead. If in the course of execution of my duties as a national coordinator of TISA, my personal integrity becomes so considerably punctured that it affects my running of that organization, then the honorable thing is for me to allow somebody else to correct and lead the organization. Okay? That is all we are seeking. And imagine if we continue like this, what will happen is any office, which office do we have confidence in currently? Let me try one of the ones. It will actually, maybe we have confidence in you only in the office. That because you're trying to verify, what did they say? What does the law say? Okay? Now, if you decide to go and make your own constitution and keep projecting to us wrong clauses of the constitution, surely, what will you do to the 4 million Kenyans and viewers who are viewing this show and who wake up every day not because you look you look superb, you look gorgeous, you're very and you've even matched, but ultimately because you ensure that you report truthfully. So there is integrity in this particular show. You have maintained a standard that on Tuesday there will be only women. Okay? So if you compromise that, then there is a blot in your office. Will you still come and will you still come and stand here after you have plagiarized and misinformed the country consistently and very, very deliberately? You can make an honest mistake. But where you even know this is undue influence, I have been told I must do this report so that Diana looks very bad, and then finally she's fired from her office. That is very, very intentional. Okay? When it comes to that level, then the honorable thing is to allow accountability to take place, and you cannot be the one driving your own accountability. It is what the president is saying. Right now, he has fired principal secretaries. He may fire cabinet secretary. That principal secretary, if it is true that they're the ones who signed off this particular corrupt malaria,
the malaria nets,
that particular
tender,
how do they correct it? How do they correct it themselves? When they have already benefited, grace has become sufficient, they are now connected. How do they cannot. So
grace
somebody else
exactly
has to come and correct it. If the same was to happen, and we realize that the impugned office is the office of the president or the deputy president, how do they correct it? They cannot. All we will do is now we'll start knowing this is the new culture of this particular government, especially when you're at the top. And I know there are very many prosecutors in this country who care about justice, who are impartial, who read those files very hard. But the minute the top, institution, integrity and who leads is very, very important.
All right, so we need to take a break. But when we come back, there's a question that has been posed to Akili here. Is there such an offense as perverting the course of justice? And speaking of clauses and etc., we will take a look at Article 158, which was referenced in that press release that was released by the National Integrity Alliance on the process of removing and resignation of the Director of Public Prosecutions. Wakili has made reference to some of that on the other side of this break.
Okay, gosh, it is so small. We thought that it was a colobus monkey, but it's actually a bush baby. So, Eric, what exactly happened to it?
With 15 major trophies in 11 seasons, there is no question Manchester City is the dominant English club of the current period. The only criticism of City is being unable to grasp greatness and immortality by winning the Champions League. But having reached this season's final, greatness and immortality is now just one win away.
On my dark marks, I've tried everything from A to Z, even vitamin C, but hardly any results. Nivea Lumina 630 works from day one, with visible results in just 2 weeks and 71% dark marks reduction in 12. Join the 1 million women already using the #1 Lumina 630 from Nivea.
Get ready to tantalize your taste buds and embark on a culinary journey with Pishi Bomba, the ultimate cooking show that brings the flavors of the world right into your living room. Tune in this Sunday at 6:30 p.m. with me, Claire Karatu, for a mouth-watering adventure.
Pishi Bomba, in association with Coca-Cola.
Make your mealtime more magical. Buy any participating pack. Check under the cap to get your code and stand a chance to win free food shopping for a year, plus millions in instant cash, airtime, and shopping vouchers.
All right, welcome back to AM Live. We're all wondering where that big fly came from. It's big, guys. But finally, once Steve Okeo has dealt with it here in studio. Wakili, yes. The question of is there such an offense as perverting the course of justice?
Of course, as a public officer, I mean, you're trusted to administer your office in such a way that you're taking care of the interests of the public, that it is an office that instills confidence in the public and so on. So that in running this office, we have this offense of abuse of office. What is abuse of office? When you're abusing office as a public officer, you're definitely subverting the course of justice. So that in conducting yourself as a public officer, in your general actions, are you subverting the course of justice? Apart from that, the DPP as the director, of course, that is the director of public prosecution, before he charges people before court, because it's this independent office that has the authority to charge, to decide what offenses they are charging you with and so on. When he presents these charges before court, the assumption is that proper investigations have been done. Actually, you don't present accused or suspects before court before conducting investigations. You conduct investigations, you know, it goes the full circle, then you present them. Sometimes, once in a while, when there are offenses likely to have been committed by people, by certain people, grave offenses. Let me give an example of the Shakahola incidences, and probably the investigation time is going to take quite some time. The DPP presents the suspects before court. At that time, they are suspects, they are not accused person, and seeks for more time to hold them as they finalize investigation. The assumption is, and the public that has confidence in the DPP, is that by the time you are presenting these people as accused persons before court, you have looked at everything and you are sure there are offenses which are likely to have been committed by this person. Then what is the role of the court? The role of the court here is to just give these people an opportunity to be heard. Yeah, because the DPP can say, oh, Olive, you did ABCD, and then that is it, you're thrown behind bars. You're given an opportunity to answer to those charges, to present your case, and if the court, and unfortunately, I want to say unfortunately, as much, you know, we have to balance rights, interests. As much as, you know, an accused person has to be presumed innocent, but at the end of the day, the flip side of that is that sometimes that subverts the course of justice. I mean, for the victims, and sometimes it's against, you know, public interest, because we are presuming this person innocent, but truly, honestly speaking, they have done such grave offenses. They continue holding office, even if it's on interdiction or whatever. They are receiving salaries, they have some power here and there, they have certain, you know, access to certain benefits and so on. So that by the time these people are found convicted, then the public has actually suffered. And when the DPP comes out and presents to us that these people, from my investigations, and you know, the DPP has serious officers around him. I mean, the Directorate of Criminal Investigations. They are doing serious investigations before they present you before court. So when you present these people before court, and as public were here, wow, the government is really looking into this. You know, I was told the other day that Tanzania doesn't like Kenyans because we are the brand of corruption. I mean, so long as you are Kenyan, you are a corrupt person. So we are happy when we see, I mean, people being presented before court. Not that we are not happy for them to be convicted, yet they are innocent, but you know, feeling that the government is doing something, the DPP is doing something towards dealing with this corruption menace. So when the DPP comes and again withdraws these charges, and sometimes probably there is a case to answer. I'm not saying they are guilty, but there is a case to answer. If you ask me, that is subverting the course of justice. Because justice is not only for the accused person. Justice is also for us Kenyans, our citizenry, the taxpayers. So if you ask me, the action of the DPP to present people, withdraw, yes, he has that power. And Article 158, which gives the DPP all these powers. I think 158.8 gives him that power to withdraw. And the courts have said, of course, the DPP has powers to withdraw those charges. But there are conditions. You don't just wake up in the morning and say, today I feel like withdrawing charges against so and so. You know, there must be good reason why you are withdrawing those charges. And it can't be charges against everyone else who's connected. I'm waiting to see, of course, the DPP also withdraws charges against small persons, but most of the time it's not Haji. It is complainants. Yeah, maybe find you on the street, I slap you. Then we talk, then you tell the court, oh, we have agreed, I'm withdrawing. You see, that's the complainant withdrawing. But when the DPP uses his power as the DPP to come, when it comes to offenses against, you know, which touch on the public, like corruption and so on, of course, the complainant is the state. Then you have witnesses because people probably work in that office. So subversion of justice happens, and it's very unfortunate when it is committed by the very people who are supposed to ensure that justice is served.
Okay. All right. Looking at Article 158, which you referenced in your statement, it spells out how to removal and resignation of the Director of Public Prosecutions, and in Article Article 158. 158.2, a person desiring the removal of the Director of Public Prosecutions may present a petition to the Public Service Commission, which shall be in writing, setting out the alleged facts constituting the grounds for the removal of the Director. The Public Service Commission shall consider the petition, and if it is satisfied that it discloses the existence of a ground under Clause 1, it shall send the petition to the President. Clause 1 stipulates inability to perform the functions of office arising from mental or physical incapacity, non-compliance with Chapter 6, bankruptcy, incompetence, or gross misconduct or behavior. On receipt and examination of the petition, the President shall, within 14 days, suspend the Director of Public Prosecutions from office pending action by the President in accordance with Clause 5, and shall, acting in accordance with the advice of the Public Service Commission, appoint a tribunal consisting of 4 members from among persons who hold or have held office as a judge of a superior court, or who are qualified to be appointed as such. One advocate of at least 15 years standing, nominated by the statutory body responsible for the professional regulation of advocates, in this case the Law Society of Kenya. Two other persons with experience in public affairs. The tribunal shall inquire into the matter expeditiously and report on the facts and make recommendations to the president, who shall act in accordance with the recommendations of the tribunal. And a director of public prosecutions who is suspended from office under clause 4 shall be entitled to, because this is again what Rebecca was saying, half of their remuneration until removed from or reinstated in office, and it goes on. But Wilkester, I was listening to Rebecca and she was saying we have the EACC, we have this, and I mean, even in terms of the legal regime, we have Chapter 6, we have the Leadership and Integrity Act that I cannot find on the Ministry of Health website, jokes. But, you know, we have legislated this thing to death. Shida iko wapi? We still read, like today, tumesoma what you referenced, the 537 million worth of property EACC says was irregularly acquired by a junior officer at City Hall. Juzi, KEMSA, we have the Global Fund complaining about, you know, the use of funds for purchasing mosquito nets. We have, Shakahola.
Yeah. Sugar.
Kebs sugar, this mercury sugar that is haunting us. You know, where is the problem?
So I think it's important for us to start where the devil is also innocent, because when we get to looking at where the problem is, it's going to be somehow there are forces beyond us that are really controlling, you know, what's happening. And when Dana asked, where do we have public trust, I was saying in my mind, perhaps Bishop Emeritus coming in at EACC might instill a bit of public trust in that office. And, you know, the pressure of coming in as a man of the cloth into such a space, it means even the expectations on the part of Kenyans is really, really high. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he acts in office. I think he'll come in with a lot of, you know, hope and wanting to do the best in that office. However, you know, looking at his mode of operation and how perhaps men of the cloth will behave, a lot of shuttle democracy will be seen, which in the eye of Kenyans might not, you know, instill the confidence that we want to see at the end of the day. Because if you're calling two people who are worrying or the problems on the side, Kenyans will love the show. We want to see that you're actually doing the work. We want to see you condemning people publicly and whatnot. So maybe a little bit of public trust there, but generally I don't know how that's going to play out for, you know, Bishop Emeritus coming in. And if you prevent justice, I mean, anywhere, it's an injustice in itself, because there's no way you can turn a blind eye on ongoings that your office mandates for you to take a clean look at. And even the EACC itself came into being to make sure the compliance of Chapter 6 itself. So the way these bodies are going to act, of course, we know that they're supposed to be independent as per, you know, the Constitution and the acts that have brought them into place. However, we are not seeing that being what's happening in the politics of the day, because there seem to be forces behind the independent offices, and it's not just Nuruddin Haji himself, it's other independent offices across the country, because we as a public don't have, you know, the trust in this particular, the independence of these spaces. And the truth of the matter is that there are forces behind you know, the control of who says what, who does what. Even in terms of these public appointments that we see, a lot of lobbying goes into that. So we cannot ignore the powers that be in terms of how people get into these public offices. The president is an appointing authority, but there's a lot of other forces, other people that we don't get to see in the fore that actually play a lot of politics around that. So the independence of these offices, for me, will come when the processes to getting these people into these public offices is as clear as the Constitution states.
All right. Speaking of what you're talking about, these shadowy figures, these dark forces, brought to mind the Sunday Nation front page headline, "Big Man's Shadow Looms in Ruto Purge." 3.7 billion shillings is the value of the bungled donor-funded tender. 27 suspended officials in bad sugar scam warning. This is the president being quoted as saying, "I have told everyone, my friends and those who are not my friends, that corrupting public resources is a no-go zone. I will be speaking less on this, but action will declare my intentions louder." And the president, we're told here, has acted decisively after twin scandals that sources attribute to influential individuals pulling the strings behind the scenes in bungled 3.7 billion shilling mosquito nets tender and bad sugar scam. A cabinet secretary's lamentations and detectives' complaints about meddling in probe have opened the lid on role of shadowy, powerful forces. And I remember before this Sunday Nation headline, there was this Sunday Nation headline, and Moses Namori, Rosaline Obala, I believe, are the ones who penned this particular article, Rogue Quartet in Toxic Sugar Scam. And they told us that 2 MPs and 2 top government officials are said to have orchestrated the release of the condemned consignment in what appears to have been a well-coordinated syndicate to enrich a few individuals without a care about the damage this, quote, poison would cause to the health of Kenyans. So, you know, when you read things like this, Diana, what runs across your mind? That they are shadowy figures, that perhaps the ones who are being presented in court are the scapegoats, you know, that they will remain in court. The higher, you know, the more high profile individuals eventually will be converted into witnesses, you know. What do you make of all of this? That perhaps those who are usually truly responsible behind, the ones who are exerting the pressure for these deals to go through, remain faceless?
There you have it. They remain faceless, and they're allowed to remain faceless. Okay? And who makes this determination? This is a person will fire. I've interacted with some people who thought I was aspiring to join the government, and they advised, if you join government and you sit on a table where a deal is being struck, if you do not know who is going to be arrested, just know it is you. You're the junior most, so the person to be arrested will be you. What does that mean? If that street talk is true, it means they plan from the onset. This is a person who takes responsibility for our action. Why? Because we are very, very important in this particular process. And therefore, we cannot be the ones who are targeted. There will be sacrificial lambs. And remember, currently we are a religious nation. So there will be sacrificial lambs who will pay the price for our action as we continue with our connection and grace and enjoy the loot that we are getting. But it points to the fact that our culture and our ethics are very, very faulty. It means all these investigative bodies are fully aware of who is behind this particular scandal. They consistently, because these shadowy figures, you will read them in Githongo's book, in Miguna's book, in all this biography, in Duale's, you will read who is the grand schemer, and they remain in that particular space forever, consistently. If anything, I honestly believe that there is a culture of people who go to seek them out and ask them, can you advise me how to best, okay, sell toxic sugar, make profit, and ensure only the last 5% is seen? Then we can let Kenyans know they will die very soon from poisonous sugar. Like, people actively seek their advice on how to be rogue and how to be corrupt, how to do all these dubious things without being caught. Okay? If that is happening, I can assure you, I know for a fact, from our NIS to DCI, EACC, counterterrorism, KEBS, we have very, very brilliant and capable Kenyans working in these institutions. They know the truth. And as a result, what we have is are demotivated public officials who go out of their way to seek the truth, to try and ensure that we have a nation that deserves justice be our shield and defender, you know, bless this, and people who believe in our national anthem, our national values. But they are so demotivated that they no longer want to investigate anything because they know this is not the truth. Imagine even around what we've been discussing earlier, DCI officers who did their investigation very, very thoroughly, EACC officers who did their investigation, then maybe when it gets to a different level, it is done away with, the real culprits are dropped. You cannot even maintain a coherent case, whether in court, whether it's a parliamentary inquiry, because we have deliberately chosen to be a country that distorts the truth. If we were to go for the true drivers of these corruption initiatives, we would have a different political class in this country, and the culture of our public service would have shifted already. When we keep saying all these institutions need to be done away with, the leadership that sets the tone is very, very important. And imagine this is a government that is saying they're struggling with funds, okay? Then you hear there's a 3 billion scandal. Where do people even get the courage and the audacity to do that? When Kenyans are struggling, it means from the get-go, there is always this perception, it is truly our turn to eat. Until that changes, and I am hoping, I don't know, I'm hoping that when the president says we will see action, he can be consistent, because culture only changes when there is consistency. Throughout all ministry, if there is anything like this happening, surely you can't be taxing us, increasing our VAT, increasing our pay as you earn, turnover tax, excise, everything, NSSF is collapsing, and we have this type of corruption that is being allowed to go on. It should not just be the firing. We need to see the judiciary. When I appeared before Parliamentary Audit Committee, I was advised there is usually a corruption and governance consortium of government institutions that meet every 3 months. I think we need to start seeing a fast track of these cases, so that these people who've been asked to, they've either been fired, suspended, within 6 months, we have a ruling on it. And I keep arguing until we start treating issues of leadership and integrity the same way we treat election petitions. Elections petitions have fixed timelines. Until we get it to that level, we will continue with this painful cancer where there is no accountability, there is no transparency, and we continue to kill Kenyans. Because we are now plaguing Kenyans with disease from all this poisonous sugar. They have no hospital to go to. The governor of Kakamega is being quoted. He's sending all his workers home temporarily because he can't pay them. When you send county workers, it means all this toxic sugar, you must live with it, you pay for it in a private hospital, okay? How do you even diagnose what the toxins that we are taking? Why would anyone allow such a process? So I think it's a very problematic culture, and unless the shadowy figures even control the presidency, I think the president can lead this particular process. I'm encouraged that he's now saying, you will see my action. Because during the campaign trail, all he said was, I will allow institutions to work, okay? But this is about culture, and as the president, he has a central role in setting the pace. I wish him well, and I think I'll say a prayer so that he's consistent.
All right. The former president famously or infamously stated, mnataka nifanye nini. You know, so as just applying the justice system, we've had recommendations from, you know, they're not just complaining and making noise and grumbling. They're actually saying, okay, this is what we propose needs to happen. And one of the things that Diana is proposing is that let us expedite these cases. Let them be handled the way election petitions are handled. What are some of the things you've seen work or heard worked or read worked in other jurisdictions, Rebecca?
Maybe we start with China, where if you're corrupt, you're just hanged. But the system here in Kenya is a bit, you know, once in a while I'm handling clients who are not Kenyans and they have matters before courts and they are always wondering, I mean, why is my case taking 2 years? But again, as a practitioner before these courts, I won't solely, especially now let me zero in on criminal cases. I may not, you know, only blame the judiciary or, you know, there are trainings for judges, for magistrates, and, you know, they happen, you know, during, you know, the time when courts are supposed to see. So your matter comes up, and one, we don't have too many judges and magistrates. Actually, they are not enough considering the number of matters that they have to handle. So they are so much overwhelmed. And criminal cases, apart from murder, treason, and so on, they start at the magistrate court. So the magistrates are usually overwhelmed. If you see a court list for a day, you will be so shocked, Olive, and you wonder how a magistrate will be able to handle maybe 20 or so matters. You have 10 hearings on the court list and so on. Then you are required to go for training. Your employer requires you to be in Mombasa. You know, there are litigants here who want their matter to be heard. Sometimes the police files are missing. Sometimes an advocate representing someone in that matter is not present, and every time we are saying, I mean, the accused person has a right to be heard, has a right to his own choice of advocate. I mean, if the advocate is unwell or is not available today, let's, you know. And once you change the hearing date, Olive, if you have a hearing date today is when? 23rd of May, 2023. That you are likely to get another hearing date towards the end of the year if you're lucky, or even next year. And most of these corruption, let me be specific on the corruption cases, you have a lineup of witnesses. Imagine you have like 40 witnesses. Hearing one witness and then the matter, they are all being handled by, you know, before they are all charged under one charge sheet. So you have 10 accused persons, you will have 15 advocates representing them, so that dealing with one witness, you may handle one witness in a day. The next hearing date is after 3 months. Maybe that time the court is not sitting. So all these things, it's not solely the judiciary's, the bench problem. It's a conglomeration of so many issues. It is the advocates, it's the accused persons, it's the witnesses, it is the JSC, it is the trainings, it is the lack of, you know, resources here and there. Because actually some of these things we can do online. Because I've seen on the civil cases, we have been able to move matters very fast because of virtual hearings. But for criminal hearings, most of the time, because of the requirement that an accused person has to be present, remember, the accused person is out on certain conditions, so that you have to appear every time. The court has to see that you are here, you've not run away. So for that reason, most of the time, the hearings are physical, and all this affects the length of time that it takes. At the end of the day, does it even serve justice? Because witnesses die, memory is affected, people forget, you know, the DPP decides to withdraw before conviction, so that at the end of the day, justice is not served. We really need a serious change in how we handle of course, the criminal prosecution. And especially, we have these special courts, the anti-corruption courts, they are gazetted special magistrates who specifically handle anti-corruption cases. But still, they suffer the issues that I have discussed. It will require the Chief Justice, the players in that sector, to really sit and see how to handle. Because if the DPP presents people before court, the DCI does the investigation, and then the process takes too long, at the end of the day, justice is not served. Of course, in other countries, the other developed countries, their processes are faster. They take this matter so seriously. And of course, those shadowy figures, they're also protecting these people. They're protecting these people. I mean, who do you know? Corruption is still there in the judiciary, wherever, you know, those stories are there. So that if these shadowy figures tell this matter should not be finalized, I mean, the players will find a way of just having this matter forever, and then some point it just dies. It's not covered by the media, because most of the time we see the media is so still covering. Then at some time, no one is talking about a certain case. Yeah. Yeah. So.
All right. I'll allow you to have the last word on this subject, Wilkester. And I'll ask this. We are told that 85% of Kenyans say, my name is Olive Barrows and the Lord is my personal Lord and Savior. Tumeokoka. Tunasema tumeokoka. We know Jesus, or we are faithful. We are also... so in a country such as this, where even the ESCC... Well, because we had Eliud Wabukala and now we have Bishop David Oginde heading ESCC, in a country such as this, where we profess fear of God, why is corruption such a menace?
I think it's still a menace because in as much as I believe the law draws from our own culture, religion, and all that. So in as much as we subscribe to these, there's really no perfection. And even as Christians, one of our biggest downfalls is that we do not practice, because Christianity in itself is practice. And other religions practice. I mean, so as a fault line, even in Christianity itself, we think going to church alone is, you know, what cures the problem. And it means for me that then we don't really address the drivers of corruption in this country. For example, the shadowy figures that we are mentioning, why do they remain in the shadows? Even for people who are whistleblowing or calling these people out, they never really actually mention the names. In this country, if you want to steal anything, there's a consultant for that. If you want to steal sugar, if you want to bring illicit goods into the country, there's a consultant for that. If you want to wash money, there's a consultant for that. If you want to hack KRA systems to get whatever, there's a consultant for that. So corruption, we have internalized it to the point where it has become opportunity, as you said. It's a skill. Actually, in business, in having business acumen, corruption is one of the skills that you need to have under that. And that is something that we have to unlearn slowly as a society. Again, remember, our leaders are a reflection of who we are. Yeah, because people seldom elect people that don't look like themselves, which is why sometimes we had a lot of jokes about Rigathi and whatnot, but he represents what the average Kenyan looks like. And a lot of that also, in terms of corruption, comes from the money we spend during elections. And I don't know why we don't think that's a serious thing, because it is our turn to eat comes from, hey, we have spent so much money during elections, wacha sasa hata sisi pia tukule. Another false thing that we carry with us is government money ni ya kukuliwa. So if the money comes out, it never goes back, even if it has served the purpose within a certain amount. Whether there's surplus or whatever, it never goes back to the coffers of government to say that we are reporting that this has come back. It has to be finished, and it has to be wasted, actually, that's the word. Another thing is also we have to unlearn corruption. We have to remove it from within our wiring and call it corruption, because the moment we don't call it corruption, it becomes a problem. And even when you look at our local dialects, corruption has no word in any local dialect. It is called theft. So there's no way I'm translating corruption in Kikuyu, corruption in Luo, in all those dialects, even in Swahili, it is theft. So we have to start looking at corruption as theft and unlearn that. Okay. And I think for me, it is also important that I mention that as young people in this government, perhaps the president has not even had his honeymoon phase. He's just entered and everything is all over the place. They had their campaign period when they entered, and now he's coming with this purge. So this purge for us as young people, we really hope that it is not a public show. Because she mentioned the media, and the media is a place for really controlling narratives. And we hope that this is not another narrative to put forward so that Kenyans do not see what is really happening in the shadows or behind the scenes. So as young people, we do not want to see the hype. We want to see, at the end of the day, we want accountability from the leaders that we elected. As young people, we don't want to see, we don't want to hear and see hot air. We want to see the actual opportunities for us to go to school, for us to get employment, for us to conduct businesses in ways that favor us as citizens, okay, and also as a country.
All right. And unfortunately, I will have to stop you there, because you talked about dialects, and I have pushed my director to the level where he's speaking to me in Kikamba in my ear. But speaking of the many honeymoons and honeymoonless presidencies, this actually was another Daily Nation headline. This was Thursday's Inside Ruto's many battles. So, Mr. President, I hope you've taken Wilkes' sentiments to mind, that we don't want hot air on this story of corruption. All right, that's it for AM Live. I make way for Winnie Lubembe. And speaking of unlearning a culture of corruption, the other day I jumped a red light. Traffic police woman stopped me, and so she was like, you know, I'm gonna write you up. And I was like, wait, please, my mind was far. I didn't even see that the light. I just followed cars. I paid a bribe. So maybe there is a bigger conversation we need to have, because I was like, I go to the cop station and then, anyway, so we all need to unlearn it, even myself, despite the confidence that Diana has in me. We take a break for your world. I will see you on tomorrow night as well as Thursday night.